Well, it's good to be in touch with you again to bring you the December international update for OM. November has been a momentous month for us in the ship ministry. On the 8th of November, after a 2-year conversion project, Logos Hope finally sailed out of Trogir in Croatia, and on the 26th of November, I'm glad to say, arrived safely in Kiel in northern Germany. It's an incredible fact that over the last months, God's people around the world, small groups of people, individuals, trusts and foundations, churches, together have given 23 million euros for this renovation project. And I think it would be an excellent thing, wherever you are listening to this, just to stop now and to give thanks to God for his incredible generosity and faithfulness, and for the amazing generosity of his people. We are a very, very grateful organization today for all that God has done. And yet the project is still out there in front of us. The next phase of the project must begin in Kiel. It'll be about a 6-month phase, and it's the final outfitting phase of the project. Right now, to be very honest, we don't have 2 coins to rub together in the ship ministry. It's taken everything we've got to get Logos Hope round to Kiel and to this point in the project. So we'd appreciate your prayers that God will again show his faithfulness to us by providing for the next phase of the project. Money is required, but people are required as well. People with practical skills and time to come to Kiel and to invest their lives in this project. If you know of such people with such time, please put them in touch with your local OM office. It's also been a great month in the ministry of doulos. The 20 millionth visitor walked up the gangplank onto doulos. I think the individual was quite surprised, but the captain, Ashley MacDonald, soon put his mind at rest. He wondered what all the celebration was for, but the captain congratulated him on being the 20 millionth visitor. It does show us, doesn't it, the incredible potential for these ships, the incredible potential for Logos Hope. So many people who come up those steps, and we have the opportunity to share the love of Christ with them. So I thank you for your ongoing support of the ship ministry. We certainly need your prayers and your support at this time. I began writing this update when I was in Yangon in Myanmar, or Burma as we used to call this country. I was quite surprised to get a visa to visit the country with the recent difficulties, and equally surprised to find the country, on the surface at least, very peaceful. Many people I talk to do believe that the monks will march again in the not too distant future. So I think we need to pray for this country. There definitely needs to be change in this land. And it would be wonderful if we could see peaceful change without blood being shed, if that's at all possible. I was once again amazed by the ministry of OM in this country. Just a small team, 13 national workers, but they're doing such incredible work. They're supporting 10 orphanages. 1 is run solely by OM. Another 9 we support in various ways. They're involved in church planting projects. They're involved in running a kindergarten. And it was great to see the church really flourishing in the country of Myanmar. But it's again a land that needs our prayers, particularly at this time. This work in Myanmar is an example of what in the world of missions we're calling the emerging missions movement. It was very moving to visit the first Methodist church ever established in Burma and to see a plaque celebrating the work of those early missionaries. But wonderful things have happened in the last 100 years, maybe particularly in the last 20 years, as the churches have been strongly established in these lands And now they're beginning to send their own missionaries. We call this the emerging missions movement. And Peter Tarantal, who's our leader in OM South Africa, is leading a small group of brothers and sisters from these emerging missionary nations who are looking at how OM can facilitate and help develop this emerging movement. They had a recent meeting and they came through with 4 mission models which we think within OM we might be able to help facilitate and develop. The first we call proximate sending. Very often people in these emerging mission movements don't have to move far to get to an unreached people that they're quite closely related to. They might be related to them in terms of culture or language or socio-economics, and they become potentially very effective missionaries to a people group quite close to where they themselves are from. A second mission model we call dual vocation workers. These people often require far less funding than fully supported missionaries and are generally more credible in the area they're working because they just work like everyone else, less vulnerable to accusations of being paid foreigners to preach the gospel. I suppose it's a form of tent making within the emerging missions movement. And then, of course, overseas employment. For example, hundreds of thousands of Filipinos who are serving in the Middle East, many of them doing full-time professional jobs, but wonderful ambassadors for Christ at the same time. Just 3 of the models of missions in the emerging missions movement which this group looked at in their recent meeting. We believe this is going to be one of the major phenomena in the world of mission and in OM in the coming years. And we'd appreciate your prayers for Peter Tarantal as he leads this group, and for us in OM, because we're going to have to adjust to embrace what God is doing in these emerging nations. Disaster, of course, continues to strike all around the world. Many of you will have been praying for the cyclone in Bangladesh. You've been praying for the floods in Mexico. Here's a report from our Mexican field leader. Millions have been affected by the flooding caused by heavy rains in the south, one of the worst disasters in the nation's history. There's a report here of a mudslide in one state which buried a village of 100 houses, the whole village buried just by that one mudslide. We're in touch with local churches in the flooded area, and if you want to make a contribution to relieve the situation in Mexico, you can certainly send it to any OM office marked for the Mexico floods, and we'll be able to send that on to local churches whom we have confidence in, who are working in these areas. Peru also recently had an earthquake which went up to 8.0 on the Richter scale. Hundreds died, thousands were injured, and hundreds of thousands can no longer live in their destroyed or damaged homes. Our close partner, IBS STL, are sending 40,000 Spanish scriptures, 14,500 blankets, and we'd appreciate your prayers that those scriptures and those blankets will get into the right hands. Mozambique is an amazing nation. It's a nation I have enjoyed visiting on a couple of occasions over the years, and some quite amazing things are happening there. Our team held a prayer night in one town which is notorious for occult-related murders. They notified the town and local government officials of their intentions to have this extended time of prayer. They began singing and rejoicing from 8 o'clock one evening. At 11 o'clock they divided into groups and moved through the village, knocking on the doors of all known Satanists. At 3 in the morning, they reassembled to share that a total of 9 witch doctors had renounced their practices and turned to the Lord. Clearly, such work has to be followed up carefully, and it needs to be followed through by our prayers as well. So we'd appreciate your prayers for that situation. The Arabian Peninsula, countries such as Oman, Yemen, Qatar, and so on, countries offering a variety of cultures, people groups, politics, and religious activities. Some people in these countries very poor, some fabulously rich. There's a special prayer guide available for the Arabian Peninsula, which you can get on the web, www.apinfo.eu/download will get you to it. It would be great if, as a movement, and if our friends around the world could join us in praying for the Arabian Peninsula over the next few months. Many of you will have been involved in shoeboxes over the last few weeks. It's a great work, isn't it? Getting these gifts to children around the world, especially at Christmas time. And our teams with Mercy Teams International are involved in a very similar project. They're involved in something called love bags. These bags are stuffed with pens and pencils, toys and crafts, combs, mirrors, wallets, an assortment of other fun and practical items, together with a very small cash donation for drinks and snacks. These love bags are just a little less heavy, so freight is a little less in distributing them all around South Asia. That will be going on over the next few weeks, and we'd appreciate your prayers that many of these children really will be blessed and encouraged. It'll bring great joy into their lives as they receive these love bags, and that they will see that this is being done in the name and with the love of Jesus Christ. Let's go over to Africa, to Namibia, where an Africa exposure team visited the Bushman territory in the northern part of Namibia. A team of 18 students from Europe and Korea travelled 48 hours by bus, and apparently that included 5 flat tires along the way, right to the very north of Namibia to work with the tribal people. The people had their skin painted red, topless dresses. Their skin was painted with beef blood, so you can get the idea of the kind of group they were working with. While their new friends were painting their bodies, the team were painting the local community's school. And in the evenings, they would sit around a campfire with local Christians, and they just start singing to God. One woman used to be into witchcraft, but she's now a Christian. She can't read, but God reveals the Bible to her in dreams. One of our translators who disciples her would start telling her a Bible story, and she would reply, "Oh, I already know that story. I've had a dream about it," often the previous day before the translator read that story to her. Incredible how great our God is. Don't forget, will you, the incredible, amazing, ongoing work in India, the huge continuing turning to Christ in that country. Hundreds of teams going out every day, doing all manner of kingdom ministry in that country. Here's one little excerpt. A team working in a slum community in Hyderabad runs regular sewing classes several evenings a week for 16 young girls aged between 13 and 21. They work as housemaids during the day, starting as early as 6:30 in the morning. They come directly from their work to these tailoring classes. They're very grateful for the opportunity to learn a new skill. But the team also takes time to read the Bible to them and to pray with them. Many of them come from troubled homes, and they're very grateful just for the opportunity to share their concerns with the team members. The team has also built toilets for the women in the community, meeting a felt need in that area and improving the overall health of the community. And as our teams in India reach out in this way with the love of Christ, in very practical ways, they are really seeing a very encouraging turning to the Lord Jesus. We'll finish up in Europe, in Greece, and we'll visit the Albanian camp which took place a couple of months ago. Children from the Albanian immigrant community come to this camp. Life's pretty tough for these immigrants, especially as the cost of living has gone up and work opportunities are quite few. Many parents, both of them, have to work, and sometimes they even have to have 2 jobs each. So children don't see much of their parents. They spend much of their time on the streets or at internet cafes. Many of their parents grew up in communist Albania, where children were taken care of by the state from 3 months onwards. Here's one guy, he's called Nico. He arrived at one of our camps wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt with skulls and a graveyard glorifying death. Didn't want to go to the boys, to the Bible club, but he was encouraged to go. He would draw dark pictures, always black and red. But one of the Child Evangelism Fellowship workers met him and told how he utterly changed through this camp. Whilst he was indifferent at first, he experienced encouragement and praise from the workers, and in the end he really was enjoying the program. And we're praying that as we get alongside young guys and young ladies like that, we can see through love expressed to them, through the scriptures being regularly taught to them, we can see lives changed. So that's just a few of the reports I've had over the past month from around the world, and we do appreciate your prayers very, very much. We're coming forward to the Christmas period. There's a number of special Christmas outreaches in various parts of the OM world. We'd appreciate your prayers for that. And we also pray that at this Christmas time, you'll be able to get some time for rest, relaxation, maybe family time, and just time to reflect on the heart of all that we're involved in, that unspeakable gift from our Father, the gift of the Lord Jesus. May you have a wonderful time praising him during this Christmas period. We thank you so much for your prayers and look forward to ongoing fellowship with you into 2008. Thank you very much indeed.